Hello, you wonderful people. So this video is going to be on a more somber note, so that's why I kind of wanted it to be the last video I'm going to end up recording. Probably shouldn't have done that, but obviously this conversation is about kind of like the passing of icons. Obviously, like in the past few years, it just feels like there's a lot of iconic people that have passed away, and I'm going to talk about two in particular that have more recently passed away, that being Kevin Conroy and Jason David Frank. Now, because obviously I've listened to enough people talk about obviously these iconic actors and what they've kind of done, especially in the very like nerdy realm and stuff like that. But it also it made me think a very larger conversation too. Because I've commented on it, but I haven't made a video about it because I typically don't make videos about these because it could be very depressing. But I figure I should talk about it because, like I said, it's part of a I want to pass on like my words about the whole situation, and I'm going to end up reiterating what a lot of people have said. But, just breaking it down with Kevin Conroy and Jason David Frank. These are people who are influential and foundational to my upbringing. I was a kid when Batman the Animated Series came out, or Mighty Morphin Power Rangers came out. I mean, to anyone that's coming across this who for whatever reason might not be aware, Kevin Conroy is he's Batman. Most people have said it recently. They're like, no, he's the Batman. He's been the voice of Batman for so much. Obviously, he started in the animated series. He was in the Justice League cartoons. He's voiced Batman in like the Arkham games and stuff like that. When you think Batman's voice, more often than not, it's Kevin Conroy. And I was young at the time, so it's one of those things. As a youngster, I didn't appreciate Kevin Conroy the way I think, because I like Batman the animated series, but I also was a kid, so it didn't really register to me because I was coming into this like, hey, I had some experiences with the movies. I wasn't a comic book person. I'm still not the comic book person. So like I didn't have it wasn't, I didn't have that special attachment to Batman like in that regard. I was like, oh man, this series is cool, but because I have not watched Batman the Animated Series since I was a kid, I remember really liking it, and like the Mask of the Phantasm. I remember that being super sad with just a lot of stuff that went down, but I always enjoyed Batman, especially that version of Batman. But now that I'm older, I've come to love and adore and appreciate what Kevin Conroy has done. Like he's been about that. Like that character means a lot to him. And people say it's like him as Batman, whether it's different continuities, whatever it may be, he has been a part of Batman for 30 years. He's been found fundamental to so many people around my age, maybe younger, maybe older people who are just discovering him, who are on the younger side, or people who are maybe my age or older who grew up with him. But it is that thing of like, now that I'm older, I do appreciate him on so many other levels. I mean, I talked about this too. The fact is that we got him in Crisis on Infinite Earths playing like a live action Batman. Yes, it's on a different Earth, but that was still monumental. I mean, everything that went into Crisis was nuts. But that in particular is like, holy crap, they got Kevin Conroy. That's nuts. That's amazing. And I mean, maybe he's talked about it in interviews, but being able to play a live action Batman, even if it's just in a smaller scale like that, and yes, it's not the Batman he has typically played or been associated with, but still being able to have that to me, the fact is we had that is, to me, I think will be something I will always cherish. The fact is that we were lucky enough to have a situation where that happened. That to me, that's still crazy. But once again, he's been the voice of Batman for a generation. His voice will always be that for so many people. Like once again, he's the definitive Batman. It's like, oh, who's your favorite Batman? Batman. And so many people, before even his passing, plenty of people have always been like, Kevin Conroy's my Batman. He's always been in that conversation, whether it be like are you a Michael Keaton fan? Are you a Christian Bale fan? Or are you a Robert Pattinson fan? It's always been that conversation. Just the same way with like Joker. It's like, oh, Joaquin Phoenix, Heath Ledger. You can never have that conversation without including Mark Hamill in that as well. It's the same thing, and it's just one of those things of kind of in the same vein for me with Jason David Frank. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers hit me at the right age. I was in elementary school when that came out. No one knows this. You could ask my family. When I was a kid, I used to run around in my underwear pretend playing, because that's how I would like morph. When it's like, oh, when the Power Rangers had to morph, that was my way of morphing. I stripped down to my underwear. It's like, yes, because I wasn't imaginative enough to be like, well, I could stay in my clothes and pretend, but it never crossed my mind. Like, I used to I've talked about this in the past. I used to break clothes hangers, like metal clothes hangers, and bend them and make them into little swords, just to like replicate you know, Power Rangers. And obviously Tommy Oliver was always one of my favorites. Like him as the Green Ranger, once again, that arc of being evil, but then becoming a good guy and then eventually becoming the White Ranger. I was like, that is just, to me, the sickest thing. Plus his Megazord as a Green Ranger was sick and amazing. So it's like, that character was always like super dope to me. And what also, because like Jason David Frank always stayed in that world of Power Rangers, because I know, like, I think it's like Zeo and Turbo, I believe he continued on, and then eventually, like, I do know, like, I think there was some space in between, but then like because I have not watched Power Rangers in a very long time. The last series I thoroughly watched, I watched a tiny bit of Mystic Force, but Dino Thunder was the last series I watched, and to my recollection, like, after being gone for a while, that was the first series he fully came back. Obviously, he didn't fully come back as a ranger. He was just a teacher, got caught up in the world of the Power Rangers again, and then ended up eventually becoming, I believe, the Black Ranger. It's been a long, long time. But yeah, like, to me, that was the dopest thing, like having, like, you know, he's even older now, he's a teacher and everything, and kind of still being in that world. And because I do know, I've seen like screenshots of stuff of like, yes, he's always stayed in that world. Like, I think he has made subsequent appearances in other future like Power Ranger properties, but Dino Thunder's like the last series like I actively watched. So that was monumental to me. Like, oh my god, just like my child, like, because I was a teenager when Dino Thunder came out, maybe pre-teen, early teens, but regardless, like, it was still monumental to me. Oh my god, Tommy's back. It's the sickest thing. And to me, he's always stayed in that world, you know. And so it's that kind of same conversation with Kevin Conroy, because I believe, like, I can't remember who it was that was talking about it fairly recently. Someone's kind of joking about the fact is that, like, I want to say, like, sometimes him and Amy Jo Johnson, who played Kimberly in the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, would be like, and stuff, and people would, you know, they'd be at conventions and stuff, and people would ask them questions, and Amy, she's kind of on the outskirts a little bit, like, not, and I don't want that to seem like, oh, she doesn't care anything. She's just not as, like, nerdy and as in it as, like, Jason was. Jason's like, oh, like, it's this, and this is happening currently with the power. Like, he kept, like, really in that world, you know. And so I always thought that was kind of like this little funny joke that I heard, like, people talk about, oh, that's so interesting about, like, yeah, he was like all about this. And the same between both Jason David Frank and Kevin Conroy, what I've heard, you hear is nothing but great stories. Like, this person was amazing, they were so nice, they were so friendly, they were all about the fandom. Like, a lot of this meant a lot to them. This wasn't just like, oh, this is something in my past. I mean, it's like, no, it was always active, and it was always something important to them, because, you know. And the conversation I recently heard, it was on the most recent episode of the CzechXicans podcast. It is a podcast that the Hero Reforged guys, Adam, Augustine, and Hector had, did it. The most recent episode that came out this month was in kind of that they talk about that in tribute to both of them. And if you haven't seen it, that podcast, I will include a link to it in the description down below. But they talked about that and how, like, fundamental those people were, but also, like, hearing nothing but good stories about them and stuff like that. And just, once again, just very much like me, how fundamental both of those people were to them as well. So, and like I said, this is meant to be kind of a tribute to them, but also this larger conversation about, like, what kind of sparked this too was, like, they were saying that they hoped and they have some solace in knowing both of these people. Hopefully these people knew how much they were loved by so many people, like, around the world. How many people, it's like, these people meant so much to them, because, like, they were fundamental to so many people's childhood, and continue being a part of so many people's lives growing up. And it's the larger conversation I want to have is, like, I'm not saying you have to be completely obsessed with celebrity. I know that's kind of an issue, but I think we can all take time to appreciate the people that were fundamental in our lives, whether it be like a Kevin Conroy, a Jason David Frank, the people that have been important to our lives, just kind of letting them know, taking time to be like, I'm not saying you get all obsessive and stalkerish in no shape or form. And like I said, don't hold someone to some, like, massive, like, standard, like, oh, like, I worship the ground, but you can appreciate someone for the roles that they played and how influential it's been to them. Like, there's so many people like that for me. Like, Haley Joel Osment, most people will probably know him just because of his acting career, like, whether it be like a Sixth Sense, a Bicentennial Man type of situation. I got so hyped when he was in The Boys or Future Man type of situation. But to me, he will always hold a special place in my heart because of playing Sora from Kingdom Hearts. That franchise has been a part of my life. I was, 10 when the first Kingdom Hearts came out, and it's been a part of my life for the past 20 years, you know? So he will always have a special place in my heart. Like that franchise means so much to me. Like I will always associate his like even when I hear him in other stuff like The Boys or Future Man, all I can hear is Sora. It's like that with voice actors, you know. Once you kind of get used to their voice, you're just kind of like, oh, even when they're normal talking voice, I hear a little bit of the characters they played. It's like that with Haley Joel Osment for me. So using him, for example, or using Tara Strong, a very prolific voice actress who has been very much in the same vein as like a Kevin Conroy. You've been in my life my entire life. I grew up on Tara Strong. It's like your voice, you've been a part of so many things that I've loved over the years. The Powerpuff Girls, Fairly Odd Parents. Obviously, you as Harley Quinn. You was Ben Tennyson from the original Ben 10, and obviously they rebooted it with a younger Ben again, and she voiced it in a like later rebooted version. But it's like, yeah, like Tara Strong, like I would want her to know like how. I think plenty of people have told her like how important she has been to them, and you know, and I would add to that, you know, be like, yeah, I'm not going to be like, oh, I want to make sure Tara Strong sees this. No, but I do want to put that out there. Like, I think we could all take time to let the icons in our lives, the people that have been fundamental to us, let them know like, hey, you know, not on some like creepy stalkerish thing or anything, but I just wanted to take time to let you know I appreciate you and I adore you for your work, because the work you've done has been a fundamental part of my life. You know, it's that type of situation. I mean, using Power Rangers, for example, like Johnny Young Bosch to me is like, that's wild, because when I found out Adam from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was a voice actor, finding out like, wait, you're, oh God, Renton from Eureka 7, Ichigo from Bleach, Kiba from Wolf's Rain, Vash the Stampede in Trigun. I mean, especially because there's like a Trigun, Trigun Stampede? I'm assuming maybe that's probably closer to the manga. Maybe it's kind of like a Full Metal Alchemist, the first anime versus like Brotherhood type of situation. It might be something similar in that regard. I don't know what they're even doing an English dub of it yet. I know there's a Japanese dub, but tangents and all that aside. Lelouch from Code Geass. It's like, you have been fundamental in my life since Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and for a good chunk of my like upbringing when it came to anime, and I didn't even realize until I was like, wait, Adam from Power Rangers is a voice. Like, this is, you know, that being the craziest thing to me. I mean, Kun from Dot Hack GU, it's just a long list of characters and stuff like that. So it's just one of that, it's just like I said, the larger conversation of letting the people, whether it be from your favorite movies, animes, TV shows, or even just musicians, because like, you know, like I've sadly been in that situation where like there are bands I like where like band members have died, and it's just like, you know, maybe you never got to see this band live, or you never got this opportunity to meet this particular voice actor or actor and let them know like how much their work meant to you, having that opportunity. Because I remember that same conversation, the CzechXicans podcast, where they're like, yeah, the sad thing is like not everyone will have that benefit, like, because I think because Hector had a story about running into, you know, meeting and knowing Kevin Conroy, you know, being on that, you know, having, you know, run into him from time to time, like having that, which there are sadly going to be people, myself included, who will never have that opportunity to tell him how fundamental he was a part of my life as well. And it's a conversation that everyone's had. So it is that thing back to, at the very least, you hope these people know that their legacy lives on, that there are people, you know, once again, I will always take it back to that line from What If, from T'Challa, and it means even more so when it comes to Chadwick Boseman being kind of that same thing of like how influential he was to so many people with the Black Panther situation. And that's why I really think it's beautiful the way they handled Wakanda Forever thing, but that's just me. I know that's a larger conversation in itself, but that line being like, those we lost are never completely gone. As long as we remember them, they are never truly gone. They'll always be with us. And I like to kind of believe that, you know, so. But obviously this is me just rambling on and on and on. But like I said, I just wanted to make this video because it's been something that's kind of rummaging through my mind a lot recently. And just like I said, there's just been so many iconic people who've passed away. Like I know one that has been popping in my mind recently too was the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't remember his name off the top of my head. I will include an annotation for it. But Yu-Gi-Oh was a part of my childhood too. Like, I'd never read the manga, but it still led to the anime adaptations of it, and obviously it led to a large, massive card game in real life, obviously as well. But Yu-Gi-Oh, that was Saturday morning cartoon viewership for me. Whether it be the original Yu-Gi-Oh series, eventually like GX, I'd watch that on Cartoon Network, or even like 5D, I'd watch it like, you know, also on like WB Saturday morning kids cartoons and stuff like that. So to me, him passing away, I was like, oh, that's so heartbreaking too, because it's like, right, Yu-Gi-Oh has been a part of my life in that same vein as well. So it's just, like I said, it's just part of that larger conversation. So like I said, obviously these are just my thoughts. I love to get to know yours in the comments down below. List off some of your favorite people, whether it be people that are alive that you want to pay tribute to, or those who are gone that you would like to pay tribute to, those who were fundamental in your upbringing or your nerdiness or anything of the sort. So I want this to kind of not just be like a somber thing. I want this to also be a celebration of those who are gone, but also those who are still here too, you know, celebrating all the people that have been influential in my life and as well as the lives of so many others. But yeah, I think that's really all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good